All right, guys. So today we have waiver wire pickups week 2, which you can make right now to get them in. Make sure you get your waivers in so that when they do go through either tomorrow or they go through Wednesday, depending on what your league does, you have these all set up. Keep in mind, I do have these projections here and pickups based on half point PPR and PPR. So if you're in a standard league, these are not for standard leagues. I don't know how many people still do standard leagues. I know there are some people who do. I know ESPN standard now is half point PPR. I think NFL might still do standard leagues, but majority of people either do half point PPR or PPR. Just so much more value in players. Now, starting off right away, I will say that this is week 1, okay? And I think it's very important to start off by saying that because a lot of people will panic, use all their, waiver wire priority for one player and think that if they get that one guy, they're going to go win the championship. And that simply is not the case, right? While yes, one pickup could change a lot for your team, help you out to win some games, one player is not going to change the whole entire season. It's not, right? So at the end of the day, some of these pickups I'm going to talk about today, keep in mind that this is just week 1. So really, I would say there's not one player on this list I'm about to talk about that you need to give up all your priority for. Right? This is not a situation where it's like, okay, this guy got hurt for the season and now this guy's going to be the number 1 player and he's the best and he's an amazing option, right? No. So if anything, I would say maybe wait to week 2 or week 3 before you get into that kind of stuff. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. So starting off right away, we have Gus Bus as the number 1 option. I also do have I meant to put Justice Hill, not Justin Hill. Justice Hill, my tier 2 guy. And again, this is the reason why they're both on this list is because J.K. Dobbins went down with injury. J.K. Dobbins is going to be out for the season with a torn Achilles, so that means that both of those options are very viable options now moving forward. Gus Bus will be the starting running back in Baltimore at this moment in time, but the reason why, again, I say I wouldn't put all my, priority toward him or to Justice Hill here is because, again, this Ravens offense, as always, has so many different levels to it. They have, yes, Lamar Jackson, who's a mobile quarterback. Number 2, they're going to have Gus Bus. Number 3, they're probably going to promote Melvin Gordon up to the active roster because, yeah, he, of course, he's on their practice squad. Then you have Justice Hill. Then you have Keaton Mitchell, right? And then you have all these receivers. So this is why I always hate the Ravens when it comes to DFS or when it comes to fantasy football because there's such an unpredictable, you don't know what's going to happen in any given Sunday type of team. But Gus Bus is now going to be a starting running back for them. So at the very least, he needs to be rostered on someone's team as, let's say, for example, we end up being wrong and the Ravens completely change how they used to play. And it's going to be, Gus Bus is the running back moving forward, which is possible again. Melvin Gordon isn't good or isn't good enough for them. Keaton Mitchell isn't good enough for them. Justice Hill is more of a pass catching back. Gus Bus could be, that guy. He is a bell cow back. He's in between tackles type of guy. So you got to think when they get to the goal line, they're probably not giving the ball to Justice Hill. Not at all. They're not giving the ball to Keaton Mitchell most likely. And they're probably not going to give the ball to Melvin Gordon. So it's very possible all the goal line carries the Ravens get throughout this year will be going to Gus Bus. So even if he does have, let's say, limited snap count of like 5 to 6, carries, let's say, in a half, I would say probably in the ballpark range of like 10 to 15 and a half. But if he does get that, if 3 or 4 of them are goal line carries and he falls in the end zone, well, he's going to return your value very quickly, right? Now, of course, he isn't a receiving back. He is purely just a, bus back, which Gus Bus, he is literally just a bell cow back. That's the only downside to him. Justice Hills is only a receiving back. Justice Hill's not really a guy who does run between the tackles. They have utilized him a lot this offseason in preseason and training camp as a guy who can run in between the tackles, but he's not a guy that always will do so. So just keep that in mind. Again, they have value depending, but it's going to be interesting. Number 2 is Puka. Now, Puka is an LA Rams receiver, and LA Rams looked good yesterday, right? And I don't think they're going to look good every single week, okay? Yes, they did beat the Seattle Seahawks pretty handily, I will say, in Seattle too, which was surprising. But I don't think that's going to change how every single week goes and how every single week ends up, developing. So I'm not going to put too much stocks as faith in Puka moving forward. He did have 21.9%, last week. He is 7% owned, so maybe as a stats play, if you have an extra guy, a roster spot on your roster, maybe you're in a 12-man league, 13, 14, 15-man league, maybe add him to your roster, put him on, the bench and see what happens, and see how he, his snap count and his progression throughout the next couple weeks. But I'm not too excited about him, but he is a player we got to talk about for that reason. Again, keep in mind, in these videos, we talk about 10-man leagues all the way down to 15-man leagues. So there's a lot of players here you're not going to pick him up in a 10-man league. I'm going to tell you right now, you're not picking him up in a 10-man league. It's either 12-man or more league you're picking him up. Kenneth Gainwell, we have the Eagles running back. Again, another really decent option here. 54% ownership, so he's definitely up there in ownership, but 11.4 points last week. We have Kyren Williams, the Rams running back, 17.4 last week, 11% owned. We have Jacoby Myers, Raiders wide receiver, 29.1 points, 65% owned. Commanders wide receiver, Curtis Samuel, 11 last week, and 17.1% owned. Now, for Tier 2, these are kind of when you go down the list here, and these are the guys that you can pick up, but it really could just be, hey, listen, week 1, they played great. Don't look too much into it. For example, the Chiefs, Rashee Rice, he did have, I believe he had a touchdown in that Lions game. And again, he looked good. He looked decent, right? He was actually one of the only receivers that actually looked decent in that game with Kelsey being out. But once Kelsey's back, I'm not expecting Rashee Rice to be that guy or to really, show off in the upcoming games, right? So that's the thing that I will say. Pick him up, see how he develops this season with Patrick Mahomes. If you're in a 12, 13, 14, 15-man league, there's no reason not to roster him for the potential. And a lot of the things after week 1, I will say, is you're looking at is potential. Yes, there sometimes is a guy that's like, oh my gosh, that's him. He's Timothy. He's the guy who's going to change my season around. But for the most part, it's usually just guys with potential, either handcuffs, injuries, players got more snaps or rotation than you expected. They looked really good. They potentially could have a bigger role moving forward. Same thing with Shaheed here. 19 points last week, 2% ownership. Pittsburgh, Allen Robinson was 1.7% ownership, 11.4 points. I'm not too into the whole Allen Robinson bandwagon here. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, he did lead the team in receiving yards. And yes, he was the best receiver on this team last week. But that offense was a mess versus the San Francisco 49ers. It was an absolute mess. They scored a touchdown on Freiermuth. Other than that, they didn't do anything all game. So I don't know if I really will sit here and say, yeah, Allen Robinson is the guy. Because again, like I said, it was a mess of a game. Tier 3, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is the backup to, I think it's, Miles Sanders? And yeah, Miles Sanders. And listen, 11.4% ownership, 8.9 points. Again, he's a tier 3 for a reason. Deion Jackson, Sam Laporta, and Brock Purdy ends off our list here. Brock Purdy really comes down to a spot start. I'm not putting too much faith in Brock Purdy in any stretch of imagination. He's a spot start depending on how everything works out, for your roster when it comes to your quarterback position. But Sam Laporta, more targets than Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's out, but Travis Kelce, and then George Kittle, week 1. You're going to keep an eye out on Sam Laporta. Jared Goff likes him. When Jared Goff had TJ Hawkinsocks, guess what? He threw the ball at TJ Hawkinsocks, okay? So he might have some potential in this upcoming season. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next one. Peace.